Everybody's got their something. You just have to figure out what it is. Hey, you, how's it going? How are you? Welcome to this, your Wednesday edition of the show. Yeah, Wednesday. Excellent job, my friend. You are already halfway through yet another week. This is no small accomplishment. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. You got this. You are a badass. It's not any old Wednesday, is it? No. It is the Wednesday that is leading you into the long holiday weekend. So hopefully you're having an excellent one. And if there's anything I can do for you to make it more excellent, hit me up and let me know. At ADSXE. It's where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. At ADSXE. Put it in your phone now in case you need it later. So I'm still here in Macedonia. I'm still here in Macedonia trying to figure out how I'm going to get my father home. I thought I had it figured out. But nothing, absolutely nothing about this trip has worked out the way it was supposed to. A month or so ago, my father had a medical emergency that almost ended his life. He was living in Kosovo as he had been for the last 15 years. He moved to Kosovo to do legal work for the UN back in the day and just stayed because he liked it. But, well, with his congestive heart failure that's been an issue for the last 10 years or so, I knew it was only a matter of time until something like this happened. So I begged him every single chance I got to move back to America. But my dad is a man who is unbelievably stubborn. He said we have a term in our family, a term that comes from the English side of the family. It's piggy-headed. My father is piggy-headed. He is a man who has, since I think the day he was born, wanted to live his own life on his own terms. So he didn't come home. And he had that medical emergency that I've been so worried about for the past decade. Flew out to Kosovo, told by the doctors that were looking after him that it would be a matter of 3 or 4 days until he would be what they call fit to fly. I could get him on a plane, get him back to America for more comprehensive treatment. That has not been the case. We're a month in, and, well, like I said, everything about this trip has been more difficult, complicated than it was supposed to be. And, well, it's just been an exercise in putting one foot in front of the other and trying to figure out what's next, doing everything I can to move forward every step of the way. I thought it was all worked out. My dad needs a medical escort. My dad needs help on a plane. He needs someone to be there that's qualified in case of an emergency. And I had it all lined up. I found somehow, in Serbia, of all places, a team that was willing to come to Macedonia and take my father to, from Macedonia to Istanbul, Turkey, and from Istanbul, Turkey to Los Angeles. And, well, they were going to fly with me on Christmas Day. Late last night, for whatever reason, they backed out. So now I'm kind of sort of back at square one. Which is why it's important that I talk to you today. I'm at one of those impasses in the last month where there's nothing I can do right now. I've made all the calls. I've sent all the emails. I've taken all the action I can take. My father is asleep in his hospital room, and I'm doing this into my phone in the next room. And, well, for my own sanity, I decided to do this podcast. Not only to keep a connection with you, but to keep our conversations going. Because, well, if I can manage to lift somebody up, that's what turns my frown around. That's what turns my frown upside down, if you will. And right now, I'm at a pretty freaking frowny stage of my life. So I wanted to continue these conversations, and I want to thank you for joining in the conversation. I got to tell you, the response to this podcast has been kind of overwhelming, only because, well, as you probably know, I've been on your radio for the last 17 years. That came to an end a week ago, and well, you turned something that could have been unbelievably painful and awful into something that was heart-wrenching, but also beautiful, that I get to treasure for the rest of my life. You made me feel the love in such an incredible way, and I want to say thank you again. And I want to keep these conversations going, not only because I love you, and I love our conversations that we've been having for the last 17 years, but also because, like I said, I figure that if we can talk things out, if we can share problems, if we can share the situations in our life that you, me, all of us are going through, well, a problem shared is a problem halved. And I'd like to think there's more than 2 people listening to this podcast, so it's divvied up even more. If you have suggestions for any of the situations you hear us talk about on this show, please bring them up. And whatever it is, we'll talk it out and we'll get through it together, the way we've gotten each other through it together for the last 17 years. I got a message from Nick, who is, well, he's got a 16-year-old son who is hella smart, as he puts it. But he's got some stuff going on, stuff that I really relate to. He's 16, so he's going through some turbulent teenage years. And he has ADHD and is dyslexic. The two kind of go hand in hand. And they've been causing a lot of struggles for the kid. And I really, really related to this because, look, everyone is different. And you got to be careful when you're talking stuff out with people that have things going on, not to put too much of yourself into the situation. I think that's a temptation. That's why people pay shrinks $150 an hour or whatever it is to not talk back to them, to just listen. Because a lot of time when you talk to your friends, even though it is good to talk, even though it's great to have a support system, even though it's great to talk things out, everyone immediately wants to throw their life and their experience of what you're going through into the mix. And, well, that's good. It's great to get another perspective, but you got to be careful that you don't put too much of yourself into other people's situations because everyone is different. And everyone is different, but Nick's son, who has ADHD and dyslexia, I very much relate to that because, well, AD is more than just a clever nickname. It's more than just short for Adrian. I have had really bad ADD my entire life, and I'm also dyslexic. Here's the thing, though. When I was a kid growing up, ADD was known to a lot of people as shut the hell up and do your homework. And I sort of diagnosed myself in about the 9th grade. I remember sitting in the library going through a book, and I don't know what led me to that book, but I came across an entry on ADD. I was like, this is how I feel when I'm in class. I don't know what the hell is going on, and this is exactly how I feel. And I just sort of operated from the assumption that I had that. Years later, I did see a therapist for a little bit, and I was like, I've always assumed that. He was like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You are definitely, you definitely have that going on. You definitely have attention deficit disorder and a lot of the things that come with that. You are dyslexic. The two things go hand in hand a lot of the time, like Nick said about his son. And not only that, I am also blessed with being obsessive compulsive. That comes and goes in waves. Throw in a little depression and, well, you got, or sometimes a lot of depression, and you've got something that a lot of people are going through. And I very much relate to what Nick's kid is going through. He said he hates school with a passion. We had to pull him because he would skip every single day. So we're trying to homeschool him. And, well, I really relate to this because when I was a kid, I just had these problems. I felt trapped inside my own mind. I was told by teachers to focus, pay attention. And I would really try to focus and pay attention, but I was physically and mentally incapable of doing it. And I remember the first time my teacher told me I was slow. I got put in this remedial class because I couldn't learn my multiplication tables in the 2nd grade. I had to sit in the back of the class while everybody else was doing the normal work, and with 3 other kids that had problems with their multiplication tables, I was sitting there struggling along, not knowing them, not being able to do them, just miserable. Being told I was slow, being told I was behind, being told I had to catch up, and why can't I focus? And why am I not paying attention? And then getting in trouble for not paying attention when I was really trying to pay attention. And, well, it's a tough situation to be in because the entire world focuses a bunch of negative attention on you as a child, and it's tough not to absorb that stuff. It's tough to have the presence of mind to go, yeah, I might have problems with my multiplication tables, but I know I'm smart. And I did. I was told I was slow. And, my parents were called by my teachers. There was I got special dispensation in class where I wasn't even expected to finish my homework anymore. You don't have to finish your homework. You just have to do an hour and a half at night. And by the end of that hour and a half, my parents would come up to check on me. I would have gotten distracted. My parents called it getting sidetracked. I know now that it's ADD, but by the end of an hour and a half, I'd my mind had wandered off somewhere else, and I'd just about gotten my name written on the top of the paper. So my parents would come up, look at it, and go, "What have you been doing for the last hour and a half?" And I'd have to look at them and be like, "I don't know. I got sidetracked. I was thinking about the book I just read. I was thinking about something I watched on TV. I was thinking about literally anything other than what was on the paper in front of me because I could not focus." And cut to a little later on in life, you get to grade school. You get to that period of school where you are changing classrooms to specialize in different things with each class. And I remember being terrified that someone would call on me. Being terrified that someone would call on me and ask me what the answer to a question was, because not only would I not know the answer, I would have no idea what the class was talking about. And I would sit there determined to focus, determined to pay attention, determined to listen to the teacher, determined to know what was going on. And, I just wouldn't be able to put my finger on where I completely lost the thread of the conversation that was happening in the classroom, where I became completely distracted, completely focused on other things. And then inevitably the teacher would call on me, say, "What's the answer to this question?" And I would say, "Could you repeat the question? I didn't hear it." And then I wouldn't have the answer. And, there'd be a lot of negative attention focused on my inability to perform in school. And it was about the 8th grade, I think, where I'd had a good experience in some classes, like paying attention in class, math, things of that nature, learning multiplication tables, doing things like that. They just were not my forte. I literally could not do that. But there were two things. One, I was able to do long division in my head and answer questions really quickly. And I don't know how I did it. I don't know if I could still do it now, but I did it. And it sort of amazed the class and kind of amazed my teacher as well. And inevitably, she was like, how can you do that? But, why do you have an F on this test? Or why do you have a C- on this test? So it was some affirmation that something in my brain worked at a level that maybe other people did not have. And then there was English. I wasn't great at remembering things. I wasn't great at, punctuation and learning where to put apostrophes and sentence structure and things of that nature. But when it got into sort of creative writing, when it got into you got to go home, you got to write a report on something, and you got to bring it back in, I could knock that out of the park. And so I had these little glimmers of hope that I might not be slow the way I'd been led to believe. All the negative attention that had been focused on my inability to perform in school since I was a little kid, I started to question it. And what I did was I realized I had a terrible memory. I didn't know it was ADD, ADHD. I didn't realize I had dyslexia. I didn't know any of this stuff about me, but I just thought I have a really bad memory. I can't retain stuff. And the only way I'm going to retain stuff is I can't fight it. I'm just going to zone out in class. But the day before a test, I'm going to go to extra help where there's nothing else going on in the room. It's just the teacher helping me and whatever other kid decided to show up study for the test. And I found that I could retain the information from the test just long enough to ace it the next day. And that was a workaround I figured out for my brain. The other thing that really helped me through the time where I was convinced I was slow, where I was told I was slow, where I was absolutely sort of reviled by a lot of my teachers because they just thought I was acting up, that I refused to pay attention in class, that I was wantonly flaunting their authority. The other thing that gave me a little bit of hope was music. I gravitated toward music. I told my parents I liked Animal when I was a kid, the Muppet. And for my 4th birthday, I got a little kid's drum kit. And I played drums ever since. I got really good at it. Sort of picked it up by ear, played along to records. My father's old Steely Dan and Led Zeppelin records, I would put those on the headphones and I would play along. And I got to be pretty good. I excelled in things like art and music and in English. And I'm sure there's, an archetype for this. There's right brain, there's left brain, and whatever brain it is that makes you good at more creative things, I was good at that. So I had these little glimmers of hope. And I remember thinking to myself, I think I'm smart. I think I'm smart. I'm not as stupid as they've been telling me I am for the last 15 years. And I think I might even be smart. And my mom says she remembers I came home from school one day, said, I'm smart, Mom. I'm a smart kid. And it was a declaration. And looking back, I didn't realize how significant that was. But I figured out this workaround for my brain where all of a sudden I went from sitting in the back of the class and being told I was slow to acing tests. I made straight A's for the rest of school. I won one of those national merit scholarship things and got a scholarship, got a free ride to Tufts and New England Conservatory of Music for their double degree program, which I turned down when I was offered a record deal in my screaming punk rock group. I've discovered through personal experience that if you offer a teenage boy a choice between a dorm room and a tour bus, he will take the tour bus every single time. So I very, very much relate to what Nick was saying about his kid. And Nick and Gunnar, I think your son's name is, man, I know what I put my parents through, because you get this negative attention focused on you and you go, well, F it. If I'm a screw up, then I'm going to be a screw up. And I think that's why I gravitated toward punk rock. That whole F you thing. It's built into your DNA at some point where you tell the world to kiss your ass. You get almost defensive and strong-minded. And you decide that what works for everybody else is not going to work for you. And you know what, Gunnar? There's a very good chance that what works for everybody else will not work for you. What worked for me was not what worked for everybody else. But everybody's got their something. Nick was telling me his son Gunnar is smart. And he's a bit of a hustler. He said that he was, I don't know where you're getting the food, Gunnar, but during a time where the school lunchroom was selling crappy generic snacks, he brought the good stuff in from home and was selling it to his classmates. And apparently making a bit of a killing doing it. That makes me not worried about Gunnar at all. Now hear me on this. There's more to life than money. There's more to life than hustling snacks. There's more to life than all of that. But, everybody's got their something. And the fact that you are genius enough as a kid to put something like that together means that all the things that don't work for you, don't make sense for you, Gunnar, well, those are going to require a little effort, little backbone, little blood, sweat, and tears on your part to get through them. And the rest of the world finds this stuff easy. Finds all the stuff that, if you are like me when I was growing up, you really struggle with. If you are like me, these things cause you a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. You, being 16, might not recognize it as hurt and pain yet. But give it 15 to 20 years. And I think you might. Again, I'm not trying to push my own experience off onto you. And I think my parents were worried, very, very worried about me as a kid. When I was 16, I think they were looking at me going, what's this kid going to do when he hits the real world? And you know what? It worked out. It was fine. I still struggle with dyslexia. I still struggle with my ADD. Radio, talking on the radio between songs was probably the perfect job for me because it involved 20 to 30 seconds of focus at a time. The end. And I could just about cope with that. And that little workaround I figured out for my brain where I realized I just had to cram for the test the night before and everything would be fine. Well, a lot of those came along at the time. Or a lot of those have come along since then over the years. And I've kind of figured out how to operate in the real world while still managing to do my own thing. Gunnar, you have stuff that you're good at. You have stuff that you're gifted at. You have stuff that puts you way ahead of everybody else you know that's your age. Understanding the ability to hustle snacks and make money when you're a teenager, man, I wish I had that sort of economic perspective when I was your age. Things would have been a lot easier. But you got your something. The idea is to just find it. Find something you're good at. Find something you care about. And just focus on that. And to Gunnar's parents and to anyone else that has a kid like I was, and maybe like Gunnar is a little bit, I think it's important to celebrate the good things. Because, look, for me, from my perspective, when my parents were being called into school because of my inability to perform scholastically, it did not make me feel awesome. I was the subject of some special attention, but it wasn't the good kind. It was the frustrating kind. It was the worrying kind. It was the kind that made you feel like somehow you had done something wrong and something was wrong with you. There is not anything wrong with you. You have some stuff going on. We all have stuff going on, but there's not anything wrong with you. It's easy. And like, look, maybe you know this, maybe you feel this, and maybe this is redundant, me saying this to you, Gunnar, but there's nothing wrong with you. It's easy to feel that way, though, when you're a kid, especially when these problems start young, like they did for me. I think it was probably age 6 where teachers started calling my parents and go, hey, he's not putting stuff together the way other kids are. What should we do about that? And that stuff can't be ignored. To parents going through this sort of thing, you got to understand what's going on. Fortunately, now there's a much better understanding, comprehension of what kids like this go through than there was 5, 10, 15 years ago. And it's only getting better. But the other side of it is, as much as you have to look under the hood, and as much as it's frustrating, as much as you go through struggles, as you try and figure that part of yourself out, parents with a child in this situation, I would make a point of celebrating everything good the kid has going on just as much. Draw attention to that. Notice that. Celebrate that. Because on the flip side of things, what that child is going through is difficult stuff. And you know what? This is not just limited to childhood. I was fortunate enough to figure it out when I was a teenager. Gunnar was fortunate enough to have parents that cared enough to kind of check under the hood and figure it out as a teenager. There's people that go their entire lives not knowing why they don't necessarily connect the dots the way other folks do. And that hurts. That's painful. That is difficult. Like I said, you can feel trapped inside your own mind, trying to battle against your mind, trying to do the things that people expect of you, and you just can't manage. In fact, it almost becomes more painful when you're an adult, because when you're a kid and you don't have the same level of responsibility in the world, when you don't have to pay bills, when you don't have to make rent, when you don't have to do all of those things, well, there's a certain amount that's looked after for you. And when you get rudely ejected into the real world and have to figure it out yourself, and you are still trapped in your own head, that can be even worse. So two parents that are dealing with a kid like I was, my hope for you is that you take a moment to celebrate every last thing that's good as you figure out that workaround for things that maybe aren't coming together the way the world feels they should. I don't know anything. Gunnar, I don't know you. I've never spent time with you. But I know your dad from our conversations about this and about lots of other things. I know he loves you, cares about you, and wants only the best for you. And from what I understand about you, I think, also hashtag not a doctor, but I think you're going to be just fine. I think things are going to work out. I think things are going to work out well. And I think that you were hustling snacks and making cash when you were 13 years old. I think you are going to have a life filled with absolutely unlimited potential. The world is there for your taking if you want it. I believe this. If I had to bet, I would bet on you. That is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, this time that you and I spent together, it's the best part of my day every single day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Have a good one. Later.